boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the Netflix new action thriller Trigger Warning, which is directed by Molly Sawyer. I believe I'm saying her name right. This is her first English language directed film. She is Indonesian. And this film stars Jessica Alba and Anthony Michael Hall. And the film follows a skilled special forces officer who takes ownership of her father's bar shortly after he dies, and soon finds herself at odds with a violent gang running rampant in her hometown. This film, I think they shot this film in 2021. I believe that's how far back this film goes, and we're finally getting it this year. And now I see why it took 3 years for this movie to be seen to the public eye. This movie is horrible. And the only reason I'm doing a review of this film is because I kind of talked myself into watching the movie, for one. And secondly, I had promised myself that I was going to do a review. And me, being the stand-up guy that I am, not wanting to break my promise, I'm doing it. Yeah, reluctantly, but I'm doing it. Now, there was some elements to this film that I did want to see. I did want to check out, Jessica Alba. I haven't seen her in much lately. It's been a while since I've seen Jessica Alba in the screen. And, her in this kind of a John Wick style action film, okay, because everybody in their grandmother is trying to be John Wick, and so I said, okay, I'll check it out. Plus, she can handle action. You go all the way back. I mean, think back to that television show she starred in that was produced by James Cameron, Dark Angel. That was a pretty decent show. It was pretty decent, but one thing I can tell you with my whole heart, you would never hear me say Jessica Alba is a good actress, and I try not to rag on people, especially with their livelihood, but my goodness, this girl could not act in this movie. I remember a story when she was playing Sue Storm in those two Fantastic Four films, and Tim Story, who is not a established director by no stretch, but he's all right. It was a scene that required Jessica Alba to cry, and she was, trying to cry, and he cut the scene. He was like, "Look, you ugly crying. It doesn't look good. Whatever." However he put it to her, she was deeply offended to the point to whereas she wanted to quit acting because of the direction that was given. And because she couldn't cry. And, I defended her for a long time until I saw this movie. And I watched this movie and I was like, man, because there's a scene in here where she cries. And, and I immediately thought about that little run-in with her and Tim Story on the set of Fantastic Four. And I was like, oh, that's why he told you that. I mean, it was so bad. The acting is so bad from Jessica Alba. There is no emotion. There's nothing. And I know I told you that it was a scene where she cried. That was written. That was written on the page to cry. They just set a scene to where it's okay because her father died. And so we went about 20-30 minutes into the movie without her even acknowledging the fact that he died. I mean, she acknowledged it, but I'm talking about emotionally. And then I guess they realized it, like, wait, we need a scene where she's disturbed by this, where she's hurt by this. And so they shot that scene. That's what it felt like. I could be 100% wrong. I don't even care. I don't even care how they did it, but it was just horrible. It was horrible. Anthony Michael Hall, huge fan of his. I've been watching him since 1984, The Breakfast Club, and countless other films since then. It was, why was he even in this movie? It was like It was like, what was the point of this character? Actually, if you want to really get to the meat and potatoes of it, there was no point to this story. There was no point to the characters, the actors trying to do the best they can. Now I will say the only one who was trying to do something was Mark Webber. And he was trying to do something. You know, he was the only one I can honestly say was acting in this movie, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. That's the only one. Everybody else was just there, like, for a paycheck. This film, and I'm not gonna get into the story and the plot and all that because it doesn't make sense. And I mean that in all kind of ways. The story doesn't make sense, and it don't make sense to waste your time. They tried to blend in two action classics, in my humble opinion. One I already mentioned, John Wick. They tried to blend in John Wick with a classic, First Blood. You know, the Sylvester Stallone film. They tried to combine the two, and it didn't work. Now, it's a good idea. It just wasn't executed right. This was so bad that this movie is like an hour and a half, maybe close to hour 45 minutes. I don't even remember. Reason being, it took me 4 hours to watch it because I will watch some and I'll have to stop. I had to stop, and because it was that bad. I'm like, man, I can't do it no more. But I was determined to finish this movie. It took me 4 hours to watch this movie from beginning to end. I mentioned the acting was bad. The direction was horrible. This young lady who directed this film, this is her first English language film, and I can understand why. It ain't a knock on her, but obviously there was some type of language barrier here. There had to be something. I'm trying to give her an out here because this was just badly directed. I mean, horribly directed. They jump from scene to scene. There'd be this big action scene. Well, it won't even be big because there weren't no big action scenes in here. Aside from the opening scene will hook you if you're not smart on it. The opening scene looks good, and you're like, okay, we're in for a treat here, and it goes downhill very quickly. I mean, as soon as that scene ends, it lets you know that you're not going to get this the rest of the movie. I mean, instantly. And so it really wasn't a shock that the film turned out the way it did, but it was so bad throughout. The cinematography was bad. Another reason it took me 4 hours, I had to switch televisions. I was watching it in my living room, then I had to go in my bedroom, and then I came here in my office. And the reason being, I thought something was wrong with my television. It was so dark. It was dark. It was scenes where I couldn't see nothing. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, I'm adjusting the sharpness and the brightness on my television and all. I can't see nothing. I mean, I was getting frustrated. I went, I started Googling, trying to figure out what televisions are on sale because I thought my TV had kicked out. But I said, okay, let me go in the back. So I went in my bedroom to watch it. I started watching it in there, and it's the same thing. I know this is impossible. So I just came in my office, and it's the same thing. I'm like, oh, that's just the way this movie looks. Man, I was about to spend $500-600 for nothing. Well, it's probably not nothing because I do need a new TV. But that's besides the point. The point is this movie just does not look good. And I would use the excuse, okay, they darkened it up probably to hide the action, you know, the hand-to-hand combat with Jessica Alba. No, these were scenes where there was no action in it. There was no action because I can excuse it then because I know what they're doing. I get it. But that wasn't the reason. It was just dark. Dead dark. I mean, 2:30 in the morning dark. It made no sense. The score was horrible. The score, if it sounded like a late 80s, early 90s direct to a video movie. You know, this is the type of film that when you was a kid, or when I was a kid, I should say, that I would watch at random because I picked it up when I went to the video store. You know, like, oh, what's this? Trigger warning. That seems cool. I'll check it out, you know, on a Friday evening. But no, man, this was not good. I'm so disappointed in it, and I'm disappointed in myself for being disappointed, if that makes any sense, because I had no expectations for this movie, but I thought at least I'll get some decent action. You know, I wasn't looking for a compelling story, but I was looking for at least some decent action. Without, I didn't get that. This movie was a complete waste of time. It's probably one of the worst films of the year so far. We at the midway point of the year, and yeah, it's probably one of the worst. Trigger warning, which should come with a trigger warning, gets a letter grade of an F. Yeah, it is bad. It's bad. It's bad for a Netflix film. You know, normally because I'm pretty sure we all have seen some bad movies on Netflix or whatever streaming service you watch, and you know, it's whatever. You just giving it a chance because it's on Netflix. This is one film that I wouldn't even say watch it. Don't even, and I recommend everything because I could be wrong. This one, I know I'm not wrong. This is so bad. I compare this. The closest thing I can compare this movie to is Heart of Stone, the Gal Gadot film. I think came out last year. Coincidentally on Netflix as well. Bad, but I didn't even finish that movie. I've yet to finish that movie. At least I powered through this one, but it was, trust me, it was a lot of prayer and some patience that got me through this film. Oh man, Jessica Alba, do better, baby. Do better. Come on, I got faith in you. You know, you're not the strongest actress in the world, but you can act. I've seen you in some decent stuff where you actually can act. This wasn't it. But hey, maybe you have a different opinion. I would love to know yours. You can email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Trigger Warning, now playing on Netflix. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.